Now, a very, very familiar face to many in racing, particularly jumps racing fans and Cheltenham fans, will be Edward Gillespie, who kindly joins me, who has been, was manager of Cheltenham Racecourse for over 3 decades. Edward, thank you very much indeed for joining us. It's getting on for a decade actually since you relinquished the reins. What have you been up to in the time since?
Oh, well, goodness, yes, it has. I think I finished in 2012, so I got out while the going was good. I've been doing a number of tasks in racing. I'm still the chair of the Pony Racing Authority, for which I take immense pride because I think it's one of the most exciting and formative activities within the sport. So I'm coming to the end of my time there, but that's enormous. I was a little figure on John Joe O'Neill's team until last March, and as I have proved before with jobs, as soon as I left, things improved out of all recognition. And he's flying, absolutely flying. But I was there to help him make the change, really, to change the blood of the place. And I think I'm really proud of what they're achieving this season because we did a lot, and now it's coming to fruition. But he was training them uphill when I went. I said, "What are you doing training them uphill for? They go far faster downhill," and that sort of thing. Really useful comments like that. But that's been fun. I have been outside racing. I've always been involved with the arts here in Cheltenham, so I chair the music festival. And I'm also Lord Lieutenant of the county, which means I'm the Queen's representative of Gloucestershire. So luckily we've got a lot of royal family in the county, so I don't have to do too much. But it's a wonderful task.
You were on record once talking about the Cheltenham Festival as saying, always expect the unexpected. Now, is it fair to say that 20 years ago, to this very year, 2001, the year that the Cheltenham Festival it didn't take place because of foot and mouth? I mean, does that, to a degree, sum up why you said those words in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we were cruising, I do remember we were cruising along like it is now, and you can feel it, you can smell, you can sense that occasional mowing of the grass, and then the daffs are coming and the preparation, and it's drying up a bit. And you know that you're 2 or 3 weeks away. And we actually that year we were just on our way. We had a dinner in London, funny enough, with trainers and media, and I was driving back with John Codner, our vet, driving back home that evening. And it was an ordinary, whatever it was, 2.5 weeks to go, whatever it was. And I remember exactly where we were. We were turning off the junction 15, I think it is, off the M4. On the news, it would have been 11 o'clock news and mention of foot and mouth in the north of England. And we both went cold. I can remember every time I come off the motorway there, I still remember that feeling of, my goodness me, is that going to affect us? And that was 11 o'clock at night, and by the morning, things were changing, and it was remarkably close to the race meeting. I think that's what one tends to forget, and we were only affected because we had forever had sheep grazing alongside the course. This is Gloucestershire. There's sheep everywhere. There's more sheep here than people, and that's what caught us out. There's a lovely photograph Ed Whittaker did of Silenced by the Lambs. I remember that, posing for that photograph. But that's what did us. But suddenly we were caught up in something that was completely out of our control. And that was, so yes, we were. And I think that's where all these plans you put in place for scenarios and risk assessments and everything else. We'd never had a risk assessment about the sheep on the course, but we had, if you like, a process ready that we could apply to that situation. And we had a fantastic team, wonderful operations team and security and communications, and that really came in. That investment we'd made over the years was really worth it, because here was a scenario that we had to somehow manage outside the norm.
People that are watching this will go, how on earth is it 20 years since the Cheltenham Festival? That never was. And don't forget, obviously it was 3 days back in those days, and we'll come on to that. But you can hear how animated you are just by talking about it, and the junction on the motorway. Is it a timeline of events, the weeks building up to and the period of, because there were false dawns, of course, is it a timeline of events that you can just remember so vividly?
It's amazing how you lose memory of bits, but then suddenly strange things happened. I mean, there was a lot of strangeness going on, because one of the first things we did was say, we're not going to be able to race on those 3 dates in March And our insurers are saying, yeah, but can you race in 4 weeks' time when you can get out of that stuff? And we were aiming off to race on our dates in April. We had 2 dates in April. I think we're trying to make it 3 dates. We were right in the middle of it. There was a pyre where cattle was being burned literally at the end of my road here. And my wife and the daughter who was living with us, they went as soon as the Easter holidays started. They went away for 10 days because it was just ghastly, just living here. We fell out with everybody. Once we started trying to race in April, we fell out with everybody because we were out of kilter with the mood of the region, the locality, the community, the business community, the racing community, and we fell out with the Irish. And you do that at your peril. I remember slipping over one Saturday morning to see Charlie Merlis because, of course, unfortunately, our dates in April were the Punchestown dates. Yeah. I slipped over. I drove up to Birmingham, slipped over on an aeroplane, met Charlie in an office at Dublin Airport to see whether there was any chance of how they would react to us racing. And my goodness me, he made it pretty clear. I didn't have to have a long conversation with him, but I was pretty clear that they weren't going to shift an iota to accommodate Cheltenham. So that was I didn't have to loiter there so long. But we fell out with the Irish because the idea of going ahead with the festival when they couldn't attend because they were prevented from, the Irish clamped down more than we did. The French couldn't attend, which was Francois Dumas, really. I suspected at one point that my office was bugged. We were advised by our security people to put an X-ray machine for our mail because of people's potentially sending us dreadful stuff. I mean, all that was kicking in and really difficult stuff on the ground. I suppose one of the low points was the vilification by the Sun when Simon Clake's club, of course, and I appeared as sheep in their photograph of us as sheep, it was horrible. It was a horrible process. We were right in the middle of it, but we also had to be aware of our staff and the wider family at Cheltenham. They were all affected because they maybe were working as tote staff or catering staff, and their families were saying, what the heck are you doing? They should cancel the thing. Get rid of it. And we eventually did, luckily. We fell into an exclusion zone. But it wasn't just that 2.5 week process of building up for the original festival. It was then trying to race in April. And we had all sorts of people. I remember Peter O'Sullivan getting very agitated on the telephone, I think on behalf of JP, if I remember, about, how we could rerun the Champion Hurdle, I think, or the major races. For Isterbrack, absolutely. Isterbrack was a stone cold certainty in somebody's eyes. And for Isterbrack, and I think he'd also just bought Barracuda, I think. So we had that scenario for the stayers, and it was a great age, that. So there was all sorts of things, and yes, it does come back, but actually when you move on, you move away, and you have another however many great festivals we had, and then you leave the place, and suddenly it's 20 years. I'd say 1 or 2 people never looked me straight in the face. I mean, for some unknown reason, they didn't trust us. I don't know what happened, but there was a failure of trust. But my goodness me, I wouldn't have wished that upon anybody else. And I hope that when it happens again, somebody will remember that actually it doesn't impact on horses. Horses don't convey it.
Edward, we've now got a situation, bizarrely, 20 years to the week, where they're not linked in any way, but this will be for many, many, many people the first time since foot and mouth disease that there will be a festival, but they will not be attending. The last 2 decades has presented its own set of circumstances. You're no longer obviously where you were regarding the role that you had at Cheltenham at the time, but I'm sure you can empathise and sympathise with those at Cheltenham all the same.
At least they'll be able to watch it on telly, but I have to work out how many people can they watch it with, because one of the points of going to the races is not watching just purely racing. It is the social side. You can see it better watching on television. I've been watching cricket all day today, and you wouldn't want to be in the stadium that takes 130,000 people in rows ZZZ, but you would want to be there if you went with your mates. Luckily we do feel at the moment we are coming out of it. But it'll be fascinating. There'll be some great stories to tell, I think, about people dressing up. I love the way that it happened, sad with Royal Ascot this year. But I love that interview with Mike Tindall and Zara Phillips on the first day of ITV's coverage of Royal Ascot was just set the tone of people dressing up at home. And it happened to be Zara and Mike, in their home on a phone like I am, but doing it. And I'm sure it'll be the same. People will be doing it, and they'll be drinking Guinness, even though they don't drink Guinness any other time of the year. They'll be doing all the things. They'll be doing the ritual of being at the festival, because I think they want to be. But I think there is that ritual. I mean, and I will. I kind of. Yeah, I'll find my way around it. I'm the least important person because I've enjoyed 50 festivals, probably.
Yeah.